Well, hello, colleagues. Thank you for joining me on, for me, an exciting day where I'm officially launching the publication of my new book, Consulting Through Uncertainty, A Global Perspective. It's a pleasure to be able to talk about this book and some of the experiences that led to its writing. And do thank you, and I do thank you for joining me. So I'm a president of Effective Managers, a management consulting firm based in Canada, but that operates globally. So I've had a great pleasure to work with my colleagues around the world to help organizations to be more effective. I'm also past chair of ICMCI. ICMCI is the International Council of Management Consulting Institutes. I became chair in the fall of 2018 and had a 3-year term. So as you can tell from the numbers, the last year and a half of my term were very exciting in terms of COVID and learning how to do things differently at a different time. So ICMCI does provide management consulting services and certification services through its member institutes anywhere in the world. The yellow that you see on this map represents institutes that are geographically bound. The white represents institutes that are served virtually through our global institute. It's a strong international network. It is the profession of management consultants. And I was delighted to have a leadership opportunity in that organization for 3 years. And working with my 64,000 member consultants and over 8,000 certified management consultants. And we're looking now as a global organization about how do we strengthen ourselves and how do we ensure that this profession is better known. So there's just in terms of opening comments before I get right to the book, I was reflecting as I prepared for this session today, and I dug out this slide, which I used in 2018 when I was elected chair. And I asked the question to the delegates who were in the room, is disruption coming to the profession of management consulting? And I said at that point, it has already started. And wow, was that prophetic in terms of what happened in 2019, late in 2019 in China, and then in 2020 globally in terms of the global pandemic and other things that have happened since then. But what we have to remember in terms of this beginning of the disruption to management consulting is that while COVID-19 was one of the great emergencies, if you will, an eye-opener for everyone in the world in terms of how one thing, yes, a virus, but one thing can so significantly impact so many industries in so many different ways in so many different geographical regions. So a worldwide crisis that we all had to learn how to live with. But don't forget that in spite of the fact that we were in a state of crisis early in 2020, and it's been at higher or lower levels in different parts of the world ever since then, there was a lot of stuff happening before then that has been driving and underlying a lot of the disruption that we're facing in our industries now. Natural disasters are increasing. We're having increasing technological disruptions, either through accidental, either through breakdown of technology, or through hacking attempts and denial of service attacks in different parts of the world. We were facing a global slowdown and recession that, of course, hit big time in 2020, and we are now starting to see some recovery. But in spite of that recovery on the economy, which is again up and down in different parts of the world, we were facing and are continuing to face human disruption, trade disruption, and balance of power issues. And add to all of that, this increasing crisis that we have now with the war in Europe. This is something, again, that could not have been predicted and has resulted in very significant disruption to the way business is done, and therefore to us as management consultants. So the bottom line in that is business as usual is not an option. So in reflecting on that, I thought it would be helpful to really explore what some of those issues are in terms of disruption, not only to us as a management consultants, but also to organizations that engage management consultants. So to look at it from both of those perspectives. And the result was this book, which I'm launching today, Consulting Through Uncertainty, a Global Perspective. And I'm just delighted to have been able to do that. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank and acknowledge K-Mind Consulting. It's a Chinese management consulting firm based in Shanghai. They're a CMC firm. They've been engaged heavily in the profession and wanting to become more known and work with their colleagues globally. In 2019, they were the winner of the Global Constantinus Award, the Silver Place Award for management consulting services, and working with client organizations. So they approached me in 2021 to whether I'd be interested in doing this book, and they actually funded the research for it. So I did the writing, and that took a significant effort. But if we weren't able to have that funding to buy some of the data that we needed and to really get into the research behind the book, it would not have been possible. So thank you to K-Mind, and you will see an acknowledgement on the book. I've very much enjoyed collaborating with that firm professionally and on this project specifically. So on to the book. Finally, enough prelude for this. In terms of the content of the book, it's broken down into these main areas that you see on the screen, because these are the main areas I think that are of concern to us. Professional services generally are changing. I'll get into that in a minute. The perception of client organizations and the pressures on them are changing significantly. And this is driving changes in the consulting profession. So some of the changes that impact client organizations also impact consultants, but then things that impact on client organizations also impact on consultants. So it's kind of a double whammy for the consulting profession. I then address the consulting profession of the future. So what are some of the things that we can expect as time goes on? And then finally, the growth of consulting firms. So anyone who is in a consulting firm that wants to grow, what are some of the kinds of things that you need to take into account and look at? Now, I can't get into all of the details in the book, but I thought in each of those chapters, I'd just give you a sneak peek and kind of open the book almost as if you're skimming it in one of the bookstores in your neighborhood. And again, remember, if anything I say sparks any questions that you have, just jot it in the chat or in the questions, and happy to get back to you. Oh, Yuha, so nice. I see a note from you. It's very nice that you were able to join us. Thank you. So the first area is professional services. And by professional services, I'm talking about all of those organizations that are recognized as professionals and individuals that are recognized as professionals by professional bodies. So it's doctors, it's lawyers, it's architects, it's accountants, it's management consultants, all of those that are seen as professionals. And in a general sense, professional service organizations are in trouble. And I'm talking about professional service organizations here. And the reason is that to a large extent, that information that had been available only through the professional institute or overseeing body, that ability to network through the professional body is now being undermined to a large extent by the general availability of knowledge. You can Google almost anything now, and by the availability of networking anywhere in the world. So professional services organizations are having a difficult time with their membership levels, getting people to come in and join the profession. Of course, those that are regulated, it's a requirement that you are a member of the profession. But even so, in that case, where people pay their fees, they tend not to be as involved as they had been in the past. The second aspect that's interesting in terms of management consulting is an ongoing debate about whether management consulting is actually a profession. From my perspective, certainly as past chair of ICMCI, I do believe that management consulting is a profession, and our national institutes around the world who are members of the global body ICMCI are self-regulated in terms of what it means to be a professional management consultant. The ISO 20700 standard outlines what it is to provide management consulting services, how one goes about it, and the CMC is the Certified Management Consultant designation is not that easy to get, but it does show that someone is committed to the profession and to being a management consultant. In addition to that, anyone that becomes a member of an institute has to sign a code of conduct, and that, together with the ethics provisions in the code of conduct, are the same as in any profession. So it's something to think about. I do believe that management consulting is a profession, but there are large parts of the world out there where individuals don't think of management consulting as a profession, and in that case call themselves consultants. So they kind of print the business card, put up a website and say, I'm a consultant in so-and-so. But are they really a management consultant? And I would say not, unless they're a member of the institute and have gone through the work to learn how to be a professional management consultant. Then there's the implications for the consulting profession. So based on the fact that that the professions generally are not as well respected as they previously have been, does lead to this issue about management consulting generally. And then finally, for those of you that are with institutes in your own country, management consulting institutes are in transition, because for all of these reasons, management consulting institutes need to create and add more value to their clients who are management consultants within their area. So let's move on to the heart of it, client organizations. I'll pick up the pace a little bit, but that was an important founding. So again, I can't get into all aspects of the chapter. When you pick up the book, you will see that at the head of each chapter, I give you a few bullet points of what's in the chapter. So I've picked out a few bullet points just to give you some of the highlights of each one of the chapters. So in terms of client organizations, there is increasing pressure to improve results. So there's absolutely no question that as a result of the downturn and the disruption caused by the global pandemic, and now the disruption caused by the Russia-Ukraine war, it's harder for organizations to be as productive as they have been. There are things that are getting in the way of their normal operating practices that help them, that led to their successes that they had. So there is pressure now to recover. You see some of the lines on the recovery here in terms of the world, China, the United States, and the European Union in terms of GDP growth. So all parts of the world took a very big hit in 2020, 2021, and are now starting to recover. So this pressure is being felt by organizations, and the rush is on. So that has been an opportunity for organizations to demonstrate how quickly they can react and how quickly they can change and pivot in order to operate differently under extreme circumstances. So having proven that through 2020, 2021, shareholders, stakeholders really do keep the pressure on the organization to say, you did it once, you can continue to improve to the same degree and at the same pace as you have in the past. The third area that I pointed out in this chapter is that access to talent is increasing. So this has an impact on management consultants in a big way. What's happened is that organizations have learned very quickly and implemented very quickly their virtual workforces. So they've realized that you can run an effective virtual workforce. And it's not a very big leap then to say, well, if I need specialized expertise that's not available in my community, I can use one of the many online forums, go online, find that specialized expertise, and have them join the company virtually. So borders have come down, and the ability to get that work from different areas has increased, has really helped organizations to access talent in ways that they've never been able to access it before. Of course, this has an impact on management consulting, because very often organizations would have tended to call on a management consultant to support them for expertise that they weren't able to find available. Now they might have a tendency to go out and look for that. That has unintended consequences for organizations, though. Because with this access to talent, many client organizations now will go out and find that talent and ask them to solve problems. An example I like to give is project management. We all know that organizations tend to have problems in implementing projects. They tend to be late, they tend to cost more than they expected, and they tend not to deliver the results that were expected. So the owner or the CEO of the organization decides, let's fix this. They go online, they find a world-class expert in project management, and that person works with them for 6 months to develop world-class project management systems inside the organization. The question then to ask is, at the end of those 6 months, will projects end on time? Will they meet their deliverables? Will they run on budget? And the answer is maybe. It may be that project management systems were indeed the issue, but it may be that there were root cause issues that were deeper than that. Perhaps it was an issue with accountability and authority. Perhaps it's an issue with people having the right skills in the right parts of the organization. Perhaps it's an issue with some people in some key roles not having the problem-solving capability needed for the complexity of the role that they're in. So I give this example to point out that problem solving inside an organization can often lead to working at a symptomatic level. It's kind of like I've got the sick teddy bear here, because it's like giving an aspirin to treat a fever. The fever will go away for a while, but it will come back because you haven't treated the underlying cause of the disease that's there. So this is the value that management consultants bring to organizations, is that ability to have seen how things work across sectors, across different sizes of organizations, across best practices in being used in different ways, that allows them to use their diagnostic capability to get below the surface and really help organizations to be more successful. Didn't mean that to sound like an ad for management consulting, but I think there is real value from the profession to organizations. The seventh point in this chapter is I focus in on output measures, because I've seen in my client organizations, and I've seen in many different areas, that there's just way too much focus on output measures. So how much we're making, how well it's being made, what is the quality, what is the quantity, how are sales going, how are the margins. All of these things are important, and I would never say they shouldn't be measured. But if the focus is only on that, there's a tendency for organizations to focus on, how can we improve our margins a bit by improving quality, or by increasing production capacity, or by adding an extra shift, or what that might be, in terms of thinking about what's going into the marketplace. As a result, there's often a lack of balance about thinking of what I call the input measures in this graph, which is my model for performance management, where I liken a well-running organization to a healthy tree. The trunk of the tree, the strength of the tree, which ties together your structural elements, such as your business model, your strategy, and your organization design, to all of your output measures, all have to do with people. So do you have an accountability and authority framework in place? Do you have Are your managers, starting with the owner or the CEO of the organization, are they doing their managerial leadership work in appropriate ways? And do you have the right people in the right roles? So organizations need to really move their focus from focusing only on the output measures to looking at the input measures, because it really is the people that will create that ability to pivot when you need to pivot. And in times of increasing change, it's really, really important to be focusing on how you're doing inside the organization in order to be able to improve your outputs, because that's where the real leverage is in moving up to the next level of success in your organization. Okay, so that's about client organizations. It's a very interesting area to look into. On the consulting profession, I've picked out a couple of key points that I'd like to make there, because the consulting profession is changing, and it's changing quite rapidly as a result of the changes in our client organizations. So the first one is that client relationships are changing. There used to be a dichotomy. There used to be two types of consulting services. You'd either go out to the high price consultant who tends to focus in on the strategy. And if you needed to solve a problem, you would go to that person. They would come in. They're the high priced, high ticket kind of consultant. And they would work with you, and they would come back with recommendations. And then you and the organization would implement it. The second pillar was around what I call it's more things, implementation types of programs. So I'm implementing a new ERP, or I've got to implement a major change program in terms of the way that we do things inside the organization. There you could engage a consulting firm who would send in the team, and the team would work alongside employees inside the organization, and the team would take the lead on implementing things. That's really the kind of the commoditized services. So they're not expensive per hour per consultant, but they are still major investments. And what's happening is organizations over time, and in the book I have a graph that shows this, organizations are not realizing the kind of ROI that they're expecting from those types of services. So they're starting to break their big projects up into smaller pieces, again, because of uncertainty that's coming down the road. So they'll do this part now, and then they're getting lined up to do the next part. So they still have the vision for the long-term change, but they'll break it down into smaller pieces. And then when they feel that they need external expertise to support them, they will bring in the management consultant to support them, but not based so much on reputation as based on what are those skills that person can bring to the table to help us identify what is the root cause problem, and then identify what is the solution for it, and then work alongside an internal team to implement the solution to that problem in a way which transfers the skills and the knowledge to the organization and does it in a sustainable way. So this is a major change in focus, where clients really do want the consultants to walk that last mile with them. Now, this isn't news to a lot of you. I know a lot of us have had that kind of approach and feeling for management consulting for years now, but that is increasingly predominantly realized now by client organizations. I referred to this one a little bit earlier from the perspective of the client, that they have the availability to reach out to specialized expertise from anywhere. Well, from the perspective of the consultant, this is the rise of the freelance consultant. So it's someone that registers with one of there's over 300 now online marketplaces where they will put together people who require skills with people who are offering skills, and they're often referred to as consultants, but it's not really consulting. It's part-time contract work to provide a service in response to a specific need. So it's the rise of the freelance consultant is out there. This gives rise to access to talent to organizations. That's correct. But on the other hand, it undermines the professional approach and the problem solving at the root cause level that a management consultant can bring to the table. So that puts pressure on us as management consultants and the industry and the profession of management consulting to really move forward to explain and to ensure that people understand what is the profession of the profession of management consulting, excuse me, and how do we ensure that that moves forward in the right way. The fifth point I made here is around digitization and virtualization. So I didn't refer to it in the last section today, but it is in the book about how that is impacting client organizations. It's also impacting the consulting profession. From one perspective, because it's such a major priority now for organizations, management consultants need to be ready to support that work. But from the other perspective, we as management consultants also need to digitize and automate our work to the extent we can. So it makes it more effective. It makes it more price sensitive, or makes it cheaper, in other words, for client organizations to access the services. And it provides a way of us being able to extend our reach to client organizations. And the virtualization part goes without saying. I've just finished, I'll be finishing next month, an 18-month project in Mongolia, which was completely virtual. So, I mean, yes, it would have been really nice to have been in their offices at some points during the project, but we can manage. So this again reinforces that borders are coming down, and client organizations will look for that expertise where it needs. So we need to be leaders in that as a profession, and then use that expertise we build by being leaders to help client organizations do the same thing. Now, here's something really interesting, and the data shows this in a very stark way. If you look at the global consulting market, you'll see that it's very, very highly concentrated. 40.8% of consulting spend is in North America, and 30.0% is in Europe. So that's 78% of the consulting spend is on those two continents. So that tells us two things. It tells us that consulting is highly competitive in North America and Europe. And it tells us that consulting is becoming established. You see that there's some significant spend, although it's smaller proportionally, in the other markets, and it will be starting to grow. So the growth of the profession of management consulting is assured, and the greatest opportunities now are in the developing markets where client organizations want to improve their effectiveness and their efficiency, and they want to start expanding globally. So this is a huge opportunity for the management consulting profession, but we need to realize it, recognize it, and support our colleagues in those parts of the world to help them be ready to provide that kind of support to client organizations. So what are some of the things that we need to think about for the future of consulting? For this section, I just, because time is marching on, I pulled out the bullets that were at the front of this chapter just to talk about them briefly. First of all is that the pace of change is going to continue to increase. We've seen that happening since COVID, that while the pace of change was increasing leading up to COVID was like throwing gasoline on the fire. Things really did take off in terms of how quickly organizations can change. So they have a much better sense of how quickly change can be made, and how quickly their employees inside organizations are able to absorb that change and move on. The second point I make is that disruption is here to stay. And I mean that in the sense that with this increasing pace of change, it's very, very difficult to forecast where the next disruption will be coming from. But we know it will be coming, and it will be coming fast, and it'll be coming hard. Hopefully we won't have disasters like the pandemic that affects everyone in the world at the same time. But when you're thinking about sectors or different geographical areas, of course, disruption will be there. I did not forecast when I was writing this book that we would have a land war in Europe. Again, another disruption that was not forecast forecastable in terms of how disruptive it would be and impacting those people in that market. And even my client in Mongolia, being the next door neighbor of Russia, is feeling the impact of that war, and it's hurting the business considerably. So they're now having to pivot in different ways that they hadn't imagined even a couple of months ago. The third point and section of this chapter is on digitization and virtualization. So I didn't mention this earlier, so I won't burden you with it with too much more. But from the perspective of the client organization, those that were able to really thrive were able to do such because they were agile and because they were innovative. So they were able to use an effective workforce and to use digital products in an effective way so that they could thrive. Many of my clients and many organizations that I know, in fact, did better during the pandemic than they did before, because they implemented these changes quickly and well, and were able to therefore leverage their companies in a way they mightn't have imagined before. The fourth point is from the perspective of consulting firms. And I did mention that in the last section, that we can achieve improved effectiveness. I've been putting a lot of effort in the last year into automating my assessment programs, so that rather than my having to manage with the client organization the surveys that we would do and the interviews that we would do, is to have an online portal where the organization can manage that on their own. They can now survey themselves when they need to. They get the results. They can access the results based on any manager in the organization when they need it for coaching and developmental purposes. So that frees me up to do other kinds of work and creates a service for organizations. So it's a win-win, and we all need to be really focusing in on that. Number 5, I'd like to spend a minute on that one, because artificial intelligence is used a lot as a question in organizations about the coming of artificial intelligence. It's often referred to by the initials AI. Now, there is one AI that's impacting us all tremendously right now, and it's represented by this thing, our telephones. It's augmented intelligence. So I find it great, because I have a lot of trouble remembering anything now. So now all I have to do is either consult my phone, where I've documented a lot of this stuff, or ask my personal assistant named Google to tell me what the answer is to the question. So that augmented intelligence has been very, very helpful, and is in fact one of the contributors to people feeling that they don't need to go to professional services as much. Instead of going to see the doctor with symptoms, you can look up the symptoms and kind of self-diagnose yourself, and many people do that. On the artificial intelligence side, what artificial intelligence is focusing on is self-learning machines, in terms of how do you do things more effectively and more quickly. So AI to date is really, really good at gathering information, analyzing data. I've seen examples that save huge amounts of money, that save lives, because AI, by comparing these huge swaths of data, can pull together an analysis and results in ways that humans can't, simply because we read things one after the other consecutively. The AI can look at everything at once. What AI cannot do yet, and this is a relief for all of the professions, AI is not able to do that diagnostic work. So if we as a management consultant or a doctor or a lawyer looks at a problem, that human mind needs to draw on an infinite supply of information. So what happened? What have we seen before? Where does this come from? So you need, as a professional, that ability to take out the relevant data and analyze that, and then come up with your diagnosis of what the solution is, in our case for an organization, in a doctor's case for a human being. And computers can't do that. They may be able to get there one day with some of the things that they're working at, but this is a distinctly human capability. So the AI, the automation, and the artificial intelligence can be huge augmenter to the work of professionals, and we're seeing that more and more all the time in terms of, for example, legal reviews in the law profession. In my case, now using it for analysis for employee engagement and manager effectiveness and managerial leadership, whereas before I would have had to do it all myself. But it's not going to replace, AI will not replace the diagnostic capability of the professions, but it will free us up from a lot of the what I would call the process work and the analysis work, because it can be very, very effective at that. So just the last point on that one, on point number 5 here, is that I saw a recent article that 27% of management consultants would become redundant. And when I looked at the analysis was right. They were saying that 27% of the work of management consultants was this process-oriented work that could be done by effectively through machine learning and through artificial intelligence approaches. But that does not mean 27% of management consultants are redundant. What it means is 27% of our time can be freed up to be used in a more diagnostic way to help clients. Number 6 is that collaboration is the key, and I've learned this in my own personal journey as a management consultant. The greatest successes that I've had have been in collaborating with my peers in my country, throughout my own institute here, or in other parts of the world. And this is exactly what we need to do in this increasing pace of change, is that management consultants need to be able to share best practices and learn from each other, so that we can apply what we have learned in different ways with our client organizations. And the same is true of client organizations. They need to have access to different ways of thinking from different sectors, from different cultures, different geographies. And management consultants are one of the best seeds of this knowledge to be able to transfer it across our institute, so that we can provide that information to client organizations. And then number 7 is embracing change. So the future of consulting, all of us as management consultants need to embrace this change, and our institutes similarly need to do this. So I was planning to be done by about 11:45, so we have some time for questions. I don't see any questions or things in the chat yet, but please do drop them in there if you have anything you'd like me to address. I've got a couple of slides left. So the last chapter is around growing your firm. So this is a chapter that I intended to provide insights to management consulting firms that want to grow. So everything up to here, I think, would be of interest to organizations that want to learn about where change is coming from. This one is really focused in on how management consultants can grow their firm and some of the things. We present a model and discuss the model in terms of the factors of market expansion. And those factors have we've got 2, 4, 6, 7 of them here. So what are the features of your firm? What are the things that client organizations would be looking for? What are your relationships? What are the assurances that you can give to your client organizations? Presentation, how do your clients perceive you? What are the benefits that you're able to bring? Benefits and features. Remember the old argument that still exists. What experience do you have that can be leveraged? And then finally, pricing. How do we price our products and services? So I outline what some of those aspects are, and then how someone in a consulting firm could use those to do some self-analysis around where we are, and do we have the ability to grow, and how quickly can we grow, and can we grow only within our own market, or can we grow internationally? I also spend some time looking at consulting practices because mostly we think about consultants as people have specialized expertise. They know what the profession of consulting is, and that leads to a successful practice. But that's just the right side of the area that you see here. On the left side, practice management competencies is also really important. So all of the things that apply to us helping organizations to be more effective and more efficient also applies to the practices and the firms of management consulting. So we need to know what our target markets are. We need to be able to do sales and marketing. We need to be able to deliver our products and services. We need to be able to manage our people. So all of these things become really important. And then I do an analysis of management consulting firms and what the impact is on what the considerations are for them, in the same way that I do that with my client organization. So this is the model of the tree that I referred to earlier, and we just basically use this thinking about consulting firms as the recipient of the knowledge of how do you get a balance in terms of getting everything in place so that you can be as successful as possible. And once you're there, how you can leverage that to expand. So the book is available on Amazon. It's available in all the Amazon markets. So you can log on to your local Amazon. This is the Amazon.com. The easiest way probably to find it is to search on Mihalicz. That's the huge advantage of having a relatively unique last name like Mihalicz. So it'll bring up this book and my previous book, which is written for CEOs in terms of how to get the right balance inside your organization. I've also put here a QR code, so you can just flash that. This does bring you to the Amazon.com site. So I found that in Canada, it won't let me buy the Kindle book on the Amazon.com site. It says you have to go to Amazon.ca for whatever reason, probably tax implications. So anyway, it'll get you to the site, and it may ask you to navigate to your own local country version of Amazon in order to be able to get it. So if you do buy the book, please do leave a review. I'd be very happy to get your comments, both in terms of what you thought was good, but also things that could be improved for future versions or editions. As a management consultant, we always want to be improving, right? So I will respond to any questions that you have. So I see some are coming in now, so thank you for those. I'll get to those in a minute, but also feel free to email me. I will send later today, I'll send you a PDF of these slides. I should have said that in the beginning. I will send you a PDF of these slides, and also a link to the recorded version of this webinar. So please do reach out to me if you have any questions. And if you found this information helpful, please do forward that email that I sent to you, so that others of your colleagues can get access to this as well. And then finally, just a little note about resources. I do have a consultants tab on my website, which is just full of resources for consultants, and also links to e-learning, including ISO 20700 training. You can register on the website for my monthly e-news, which is not salesy. It's intended to be helpful. And if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe easily, and I don't take offense of that. These are resources that may or may not be helpful. And I'm always happy to connect either on LinkedIn or Facebook, because, as I said, collaboration is the key. We do need to collaborate to be successful in this life. So I'll get rid of the screen share for now, so you can see me a little better, and I'll just open up the questions here. Daniel, you mentioned that access to talent is increasing due to virtual workforce, but it also feels like there's a real shortage of talent driven by the Great Resignation and other trends. Would you comment on the competing pressures to access to talent? You're absolutely right, Danielle. This is correct. And the client organizations I'm working for now, the biggest headache that the owner faces is, where am I going to get my talent? So partly the virtual access to people is helpful, because if you need professional services, you can reach out to them. So one of my client organizations, for example, for a job that would typically be inside, he has 2 or 3 people working part-time virtually, providing the same services. But when you're working and you need people on site, and the people don't want to work on site, or those that do work on site don't have the skills to be able to support that work, then client organizations are in a problem. My advice to client organizations always is to focus in on the value set of the individual and their problem solving capability, their ability to work at different levels of complexity in the organization. And not so much on the skills and knowledge. So if you have someone that will be a good fit in the organization, and you have someone who can bring their their mental processing capabilities to really help improve the organization, they can pick up the skills and knowledge piece pretty quickly. So that can help a little bit, but it is an ongoing challenge. I agree with you, Danielle. Sunil, great content. Thank you. I appreciate that, Sunil. Your thoughts on how would clients in future select management consultants globally? That's a very, yes, thank you for that question. There's a few things. One thing is from the perspective of ICMCI, or International Coordinating Body, they are creating a CMC global registry. Where client organizations can go to find management consultants. So that's one kind of method. The other method is, and I'm afraid it's sort of their easier one now, is they'll go online to one of these places that says they can get consultants, and they'll look for that expertise there. So we as a profession really do need to get our act together and provide these kinds of registries. Ours is just at the very early stages now. So if we can get that moving and make it more well-known, that can be very, very helpful. I think we have about 100 CMCs registered on that. So it's almost at critical mass where we can start moving it. The other thing I think we can do and really work towards is promote what an institute is, and the fact that certified management consultants are all affiliated with different institutes in different parts of the world. And every geography that you can imagine that exists is represented by an institute somewhere. So simply by going to the ICMCI site, you can find your institute in your country, or in another country where you want that specialized expertise, go there, and then through that institute find a CMC. But it's harder now than it should be, and we need to. That's one thing we do need to work on. Do I think it's harder now to succeed as a solo practitioner consultant than it was 5 years ago? Yes and no. Yes and no. So the yes part is that, especially in North America, it is increasingly competitive. So solo practitioners have a harder time reaching out and competing with others. So that's the yes part in North America and Europe. In terms of the no part, the same kinds of access to clients that what I call the specialized expertise the consultants have are also accessible to us. So we can use those channels to get our name out there. And client organizations are increasingly receptive to deal with a solo practitioner if you have the expertise that they need and want. When I do consultant training programs, I ask what is the most important skill that you have. And people usually talk about, I'm performance management, I'm change management, I'm lean, I'm whatever. But really, as a management consultant, the most important skill is marketing and sales. I'm afraid to say, because we have to be really good at getting our name out there because of the competition. So it is a yes and no. It's not an easy answer. So for solo practitioners, joining the institute and collaborating with colleagues in the institute, I think is a really good step. Okay, well then I will bring this to a close. I really thank you very much for your participation in this. Everybody that logged on stayed on, so that's a good sign. I'm glad that you enjoyed the content, and thank you, Peter, for your comment. Now I'm looking forward to your feedback to me on the book. Thank you very much. So I wish you all the very best. I have a gift of 10 minutes for you of your time to get on with your day, and do take advantage of my email. I will send that out later today on the PDF together with the link to the video. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.